So today we are gathered because once again we see we want to highlight the practices that ICE is using to detain everyday people living their normal lives. We are here with the family of Mr. Carlos, who was detained early on January 19th. And there was a typo in the press release that said February 19th, but it's actually January 19th, while on his way to work. It seems to be more common practice now that immigration is looking for a certain individual. They enter an apartment complex or a subdivision, and then they start questioning people that are gathered there, questioning about their immigration status. So this was the case of Mr. Carlos, that he was detained, even though they were not directly looking for him. They started questioning him about his immigration status, and subsequently he was questioned and taken into ICE custody. Mr. Carlos does have a previous order of deportation, but it's not for anything aggravated or any sort of crime-related thing, but rather it was a mistake by immigration court a long time ago that put him in this position. The family has retained an attorney. Unfortunately, he had court this morning and is unable to be here, but Ms. Marcela and we will be able to answer questions at the end. It's important to know that Mr. Carlos has 5 U.S. Children who are present here with us today, who are now left without their father, and he does have a 5-month-old who is also present with us today. Hoy estamos aquí reunidos para hablar acerca de las injusticias que están ocurriendo. Como vemos en el caso del señor Carlos y de la señora Marcela, el señor Carlos fue detenido yendo al trabajo el 19 de enero, yendo en un día de rutina para proveer para él y su familia. Él estaba yendo al trabajo y desafortunadamente inmigración entró al complejo de apartamentos a donde él estaba, y aunque no lo estaban directamente buscando a él, lo empezaron a cuestionar sobre su estatus migratorio y fue detenido por inmigración. El señor Carlos ahorita en detención, número 1, deja a la familia sin protección económica. Número 2, deja a 5 niños ciudadanos sin su papá, y ellos están aquí presentes con nosotros. De nuevo fue un caso de que estaban buscando a otra persona, y como lo hemos visto en otros casos, como el señor José, que no están buscando a la familia, pero desafortunadamente acá hay otras personas en la red de inmigración. It's important to point out that the Pew Hispanic Center just released a study 2 days ago that points out that Dallas County and Harris County are now the deportation capitals of the United States. Dallas is number 1 in terms of detaining and transferring people over to ICE. Harris County is number 2 in detaining and sending people over to ICE. So that's one of the things we want to highlight. But at this time, we'll have Ms. Marcela come up. She'll tell you a little bit more about the story that happened, and then we'll go from there. So ahora es importante recalcar que el FIEL Hispanic Center acaba de dar un anuncio o un estudio donde dice que el condado de Dallas es el lugar donde más deportan a personas, y seguido número 2 por el condado de Harris. So es importante saber que si hay detenciones ocurriendo, aunque son esporádicas y no son masivas grandes como enredadas, sí están ocurriendo detenciones aquí en la ciudad. So ahora vamos a tener a la señora Marcela, va a hablar un poco acerca de su esposo y qué fue lo que pasó ese día. Y le agradecemos que ahorita vamos a tomar preguntas en el final. So we'll take questions at the end. If we need translating, we'll do that as well.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Marcela. Estoy aquí por el caso de mi esposo Carlos Andrés. Como todos los días, yo me levantaba a las 5:30 de la mañana a preparar su lonche. Él salía de mi casa a las 6:20, 6:30 para su trabajo, al parqueadero para subir su herramienta.
So her name is Marcela. Her husband is Carlos. Just like every morning, she will wake up at 5:30 to prepare breakfast for him at 6:30. Yeah.
Como todas las mañanas, yo me levantaba a hacer su lonche, prepararle su café, se despedía de los niños y de mí.
Just like every morning, I would wake up, make his breakfast, make his coffee, and he would say bye to myself and my children.
Ese día, el 19 de enero, me llamó él del parqueadero y me dice, manda al niño porque me agarró a migración.
On that day, on January 19th, he called me from the parking lot about 20 minutes after leaving, and he said, send Eric, who's the oldest son, because I have been detained.
Me dijo, solo manda al niño grande a Eric, no vayas a venir tú, porque migración me agarró.
He said, only send to Eric, who's 14 years old, and you don't come yourself because immigration just apprehended me.
Y él me cuenta que dice que cuando él estaba en el parqueadero subiendo su herramienta al carro, le alusaron en la cara.
He recounts that as he was loading his tools onto the truck in the morning, they just flashed a flashlight in his face.
Le dijeron que si esa herramienta era de él.
They asked him if those tools were his,
Como si él estuviera robando.
as if he was stealing.
Después le dijeron, ¿conoces a estas personas? Y él les dijo, no, porque yo no vivo aquí.
Then they subsequently asked him if he knew a list of people that they had told him, and he said no, because I don't live here.
Y dijo, esas personas viven ahí en ese apartamento. Él les dijo, yo no vivo ahí en ese apartamento.
He said those people live in this, and he pointed to an apartment, and he says, and I don't live there. I live in a different apartment.
Cuando salió su compañero de trabajo de ahí de ese apartamento, le dijeron que si él conocía a esas personas. Sí, él dijo que no vivían ahí.
When the person who did live in the apartment complex, who happened to be a co-worker of Mr. Carlos, he told him that he did not know those people, and those people no longer live there either.
Y les dijo, podemos pasar a ver tu apartamento, a revisar si esas personas están ahí, porque hemos recibido llamadas anónimas de ese apartamento.
And then they subsequently asked if they could enter the apartment because they claimed to have received anonymous calls that undocumented people live there.
Y el señor dijo que no, que él no iba a dar permiso de que ellos pasaran, porque ahí solo estaba su familia y se iban a llevar a su familia.
The coworker said that they couldn't come in because he was afraid that they were going to also apprehend his family who lived there.
Y entonces les dijo, sí.
Pásame a mí, porque
Sí, ya lo cargo.
Dijo, si no me das permiso de pasar a tu apartamento, te voy a arrestar.
He says that if he then threatened the man that if he didn't allow them to go into the apartment, that everybody was gonna be arrested.
Entonces a él lo arrestaron y él le gritó a su esposa, no vayas a salir, no abras la puerta.
So they arrested the coworker, and the coworker yelled at his wife, "Don't come out! Don't open the door."
Y a mi esposo le dijeron que les mostrara su ID, y él mostró su ID y le dijeron, ¿tienes permiso de trabajo? Y mi esposo dijo no.
They asked him for his ID, and then they asked him if he had a work permit, and her husband replied no.
Y entonces cuando arrestaron al otro señor, el agente le preguntó al oficial, le dijo que qué hacían con mi esposo. Y el oficial se quedó pensando y dijo, llévatelo.
So then when they arrested the coworker, they asked him, what do we do with Mr. Carlos? And the officer just, she nodded her head for a minute. She thought about it, and she's like, well, let's just take him.
Cuando se llevaron a mi esposo, dijo, ¿puedo hacer una llamada? Dijo, sí la puedes hacer, pero allá dentro del carro. Lo metieron a una Ford gris.
When afterwards, her husband asked to make a call, and they said, you can do it, but you have to go inside of the truck. And it was an unmarked gray Ford.
Y dijo, voy a llamar a mi esposa para que mande a Eric a recoger mi cartera. Y le dijeron, ¿dónde vive tu esposa? Dice, mi esposa vive para allá. ¿Dónde vive tu esposa? Yo no les voy a decir dónde vive mi esposa.
So then they asked him, where does your wife live? And he said, well, she lives in that direction, and pointed to a general direction. And they asked him exactly where, and he says, I'm not going to tell you where my wife lives.
Y ya llegó mi niño, Eric, de 14 años. Él fue a recoger la billetera de mi esposo.
And Eric, who was 14 years old, was the one that went and picked up Mr. Carlos's wallet.
Eric también tiene un breve statement.
Okay, Eric, who's the 14-year-old son of Mr. Carlos, also has a statement.
¿Hablas inglés? ¿Hablas inglés? Let's do it in English. Can you do it?
So when my dad called my mom and told me to go get his wallet, I went to the parking lot and saw him in a gray truck. I went up to him, and an officer told me to stop because he had the wallet. So I got the wallet, and I was gonna go back home, but then they called me again and told me that the tools that he was gonna use to go work were behind the truck. So I decided to go get them. Well, they told me that they put it inside of the house.
How do you feel looking your dad in that situation?
When I saw him like that, I didn't know what to think about. I just think that this isn't fair because he's not a bad person. He was not gonna do anything bad. He just wanted to go work so he can help us.
What the message will be to other people? Do you experience that situation? So now you're the big man in the house. Now you have to take care of everybody, right? What did your dad tell you about?
So la familia es de 5 y también tienen a este niño que tiene problemas con disabilidad y también es una de las razones por qué papá necesita estar. ¿Se quiere explicarlo?
Bueno, ese día que mi niño regresó del parqueadero, llegó y dijo, se llevaron a mi papá en una troca gris.
That day when my son came back home after going to see my husband in the truck, he said they took my dad, they took him in a gray truck.
Mi niño de 6 años se puso a llorar al oír la noticia que se habían llevado a su papá.
My kid, who was 6 years old, started crying at hearing the news that they had taken his father.
Él ese día le dio fiebre, no comió en todo el día, estuvo 3 días sin comer.
That day he got a fever and he stopped eating, he lost appetite, and he was 3 days without eating food.
Se despertaba desesperado, a veces dormido decía, yo quiero a mi papá, yo quiero a mi papá, y yo quiero a mi papá.
He would wake up in the middle of the night, and sometimes when he was asleep, he would say, I want my father, I want my father, I want my father.
Y es una injusticia lo que están haciendo con mi esposo, migración, porque mi esposo no es un criminal, no es un delincuente, simplemente él iba para el trabajo, porque es el único que sostiene el hogar.
And I really feel like it's an injustice what they're doing to my husband. At the day he was detained, he was only on his way to work to provide for myself and for my family.
¿De dónde son ustedes?
Mi esposo es de Guatemala, yo soy de México.
So her husband's from Guatemala and she's from Mexico. I don't know if you want to show the pictures.
La razón que yo no puedo trabajar porque yo tengo un niño especial. Yo soy la que me encargo de llevar a los niños a la escuela, llevar al niño al doctor, a sus chequeos, sus terapias.
One of the reasons why I'm unable to work is because we have a special needs child, and I'm the one that's in charge of taking him to his appointments, taking him to his checkups, and taking care of that aspect of our family.
¿Qué vas a hacer ahora?
No lo sé. Es complicado para mí sin el apoyo de mi esposo. Porque él era el que trabajaba, él era el que cubría los gastos en el hogar. Pero confío en Dios que Él volverá a estar con nosotros. Porque Él, como les digo, Él no es un criminal, no es un delincuente. Él del trabajo a la casa, los fines de semana a la iglesia y de la iglesia a la casa. Porque somos una familia cristiana y creemos en Dios, que Él nos ayudará. No estamos solos. Dios es grande y Él nos va a ayudar a salir adelante y nos va a dar la fuerza. Y sé que mi esposo, yo lo creo y lo confieso en el nombre de mi Cristo, que él va a volver a estar con nosotros.
¿Cuánto tiempo tiene él aquí?
Tiene 12 años.
12 años.
Sí.
¿Y cuándo fue su orden de deportación?
Fue,
Él entró en el 2005 y lo detuvieron en la frontera. El juez le dio una orden para que se presentara al juez, pero el mismo día lo deportaron. Entonces, por un error, no pudo presentarse a la corte. Ahora...
So just to explain briefly, he came in the border and he was given a court date to appear before a magistrate, but he was just sent back, and unfortunately, because of that action, he missed his court date. So now he has an active order of deportation.
Where did he come across that day?
En 2005,
In 2005, ¿en qué fecha del 2005?
diciembre 30 de 2005.
su deportación fue diciembre 30 del 2005.
December 30th, 2005. So he's been here for 12 years.
And then when did he come back?
En 2006.
2006.
En
Febrero 2006.
And he never had another interaction with police or
Nunca ha
immigration?
tenido otra interacción con la policía.
No, ninguno, no debe ticket, no debe nada. Como les digo, él no es un criminal, no es un delincuente. Es una injusticia lo que están haciendo con mi esposo.
So he's never had another run-in with the police. He has a clean criminal record, and she was explaining earlier that they're a Christian family. They go to church. They get back to their community and things like that. I did want to give you guys a number. The fiscal year of 2017, Dallas has had referred 16,520 people over to ICE. In Houston, it's number 2 at 13,565. Followed by, in third place, Atlanta at 13,551. And we can share this information about the increases in detentions and interactions with ICE if you guys request that.
Are those people without criminal record?
Well, they're referrals to ICE, so it depends. But what we see, and we have another case of Mr. Jose, which you guys might have remembered from a couple of months ago, where he was just going out, same thing, going out to his vehicle in the morning. They came up to him with a picture saying, hey, you look like this guy, you must be this guy, and when the guy didn't even look like him. And so unfortunately, we get about maybe 3 or 4 calls a day of similar things occurring in just in the Houston area. So we know that even though the old school tactics of raids and work enforcement operations are not happening, immigration is very active in the community and going out and searching and seeking, and once again leaving this family of 5 in peril, because now they won't know what to do. A study came out 2 years ago that said that a family of 4, if the main breadwinner is deported, it'll cost the system about $132,000 over the next 2 years, because the family may need to seek food assistance or rent assistance or things like that. So at the end of the day, we all suffer. The number from DACA recipients here in the state, if you were to take DACA recipients out of the equation in the state of Texas would stand to lose $6 billion in GDP a year from the contributions that we make. So that's a big economic thing. Yes.
Sorry. Based on the calls you're receiving, what patterns can you see in the detentions and the questions that ICE is doing in the Houston area?
So it seems that unlike before they would do like worksite enforcement, or they would physically go look for somebody knocking on doors. It seems now that the trend is to pretend like they're going to go look for somebody at an apartment complex or a neighborhood, and then just start asking people at random. So the question, and one of the things that we are looking at is that very fine line between actual enforcement and racial profiling. Because if they're asking only a certain people that may look a certain way, obviously that can lead to a lot of issues, and that shouldn't be happening. But well, once again, it's very difficult. ICE is a very secretive organization where they don't release too much stuff. But what they do release from what we're hearing from the community is that these things continue to happen. And like I said, we dealt with this case just a couple of months ago. We're dealing with it again, and we are getting calls from people that these things are happening.
Una de las cosas muy importantes que puedes decir, César, es que hemos visto más en vecindarios latinos, en apartamentos, en horas de la mañana muy tempranos, donde la historia es: voy a buscar a alguien, no lo encuentro, espero y me llevo a quien sea.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that in most of these cases, they're mostly in apartment complexes or Latino neighborhoods that we're seeing an increase of these stories being told. And the protocol is kind of the same. We go very early in the morning. As people are going to work, we claim to be looking for somebody. And then at the end, we apprehend or we question other people. And by chance, it turns out that they may be undocumented, they may be. But we'd be interested to know if they've questioned also U.S. citizens and things like that. But those people haven't come
What
forward.
is your advice to people who live in these apartment complexes if they are approached by an agent?
The advice is for them to know their rights. We offer Know Your Rights trainings and seminars all over the city of what interactions you can have. You have the right to remain silent. A lot of the people, they self-incriminate by saying, oh yeah, I'm not from here, and then they say more. But it's important for people to know that whether or not they're documented, they do have rights under the Constitution, and they can use their Fifth Amendment rights to not incriminate themselves further.
So the other guy, you mentioned there were two people, Carlos and his
His
coworker.
coworker. Mhm.
The coworker was arrested for what?
Same thing for
So
not.
they asked him for his ID,
They asked them for documentation as well.
and you don't know anything about his record.
No sabemos nada del compañero de trabajo de nada de
No,
su récord criminal. No.
no de lo,
No.
no sé.
And then they asked Carlos for his ID, gave him his Guatemalan ID.
¿Qué tipo de ID trae Carlos?
Matrícula consular.
The
And
consular ID.
then they asked him if he had a work permit. And
Yeah,
then
they asked him for a work
and found
permit.
him detained. Okay, this case happened in January 19th. Why are you guys bringing it up now?
Pasó el 19 de enero porque hasta ahora decidió.
Yo no sabía de esta organización.
Yeah.
Yo llamé al canal de Telemundo, solo a los no sé cuántos días me devolvieron la llamada y me dijo, la que me contestó la persona, no recuerdo el nombre, y me dijo, oh, lo siento, me dice, solo voy a pasar su reporte, y fue todo lo que me dijo.
So for the last couple of weeks, she's been looking for help, and she didn't know that FIEL existed. So she had called other news agencies, and they just were like, well, we can't really help you. So she came to us. We are working with her attorney, and we're looking to see if we can reopen her husband's case, since at the beginning he shouldn't have been put in deportation proceedings from the beginning. From the beginning, he could have fought his case and maybe asked for asylum or for other types of relief. So we're going to see what legally we can do.
Cesar,
Can you explain one more time?
¿Cómo se llama el abogado de ellos?
Jorge Cantú.
Jorge Cantú. Yes.
Can you explain one more time the situation and the previous deportation?
So he was caught coming across the border, and he was given a court date, so he would have given an opportunity to be here and to fight his court out if he had some sort of immigration relief. But unfortunately, he was sent back immediately, so he missed his court date, and that's what triggered the active order of deportation. But the thing we want to highlight here is that when immigration had the interaction with her husband, they didn't know that. There was no way for them to know that. They didn't, it's not like he's carrying around an ankle bracelet. It's not they're actively looking for him, or they had a warrant to go look for him. Rather, they questioned everybody kind of at random, and these things subsequently came out. So it goes back to the question is, what tactics are ICE using? Are they questioning everybody? Are they questioning workers that come out with tools in the morning? And that could lead to a lot of issues, to a lot of civil rights violation, in our opinion, which is why it's important to highlight these cases for us, because it does take a human toll. I mean, we see kids, we see now teenagers that are left without their father, with a big responsibility that Eric now has on his hand to kind of look out for his family.
So ICE had no way of knowing he had a deportation order?
Not at the
before?
time, no. So when they hadn't, which is, once again, the question leads, how did they know who to question, who do they question, why are they coming into apartment complexes at 5 in the morning and just kind of stalking people, which is why we're highlighting these cases.
La otra historia de los tres compañeros que también los detuvieron porque eran latinos y traían herramientas en las camionetas. Es algo que se mira, están haciendo profile.
What is the name of the apartment complex?
¿Cómo se llama el compartimento? ¿Complejo de apartamento?
Belindos,
Belindos. ¿Y por dónde queda?
por la West Belfort y Fondre.
It's Belindos, es on West Belford and Fondre.
So has she heard from her husband at all? Is he in
¿Usted ha podido hablar con su esposo?
Sí,
Yes, she has.
What does he say?
¿Y qué le dice?
no, esperaba que le dieran buenas noticias, pero pues como él tuvo la corte que fue el miércoles, pues no fueron buenas noticias, pero
¿Qué dijo
Ah.
el juez el miércoles?
dijo que
Yeah, Patricia, let me say that.
dijo que no le negó la fianza, dijo que él había tenido una corte y él no se presentó a esa corte. No le cerró el caso, sino que su caso de él está pendiente. El abogado tiene que ir a hablar con mi esposo, escuchar la conversación de mi esposo. Si migración fue equivocación de migración, de que mi esposo no se presentara a la cita que él tuvo y fue deportado antes de la cita, fue error de migración. Hasta que migración acepte su error, van a volver a... Entonces el abogado le va a reabrir el caso de mi esposo.
Okay, so she has spoken to her husband. Her husband says that unfortunately he had to present himself before an immigration judge on Wednesday. The judge unfortunately denied a bond because of the pending order of deportation that he had, the active order of deportation that he had, and it's not until ICE assumes an error in that previous deportation case, like saying that, okay, it was because he was removed that he missed his court date, is that when the attorney can go ahead and reopen up his case, which is difficult, but their attorney is working to figure that stuff out.
¿Dónde está tu esposo?
En la cárcel de Conroe.
He's in Conroe Detention Center currently. Okay, at this time we'll go ahead and conclude.